It is January 13th, 2014. I'm with Nicole Olson. Just tell me everything that you can remember about what happened today.
I went to the movies with my husband, Chad Olson, and we went to see the Marine movie with Mark Wahlberg, Lone Survivor.
It was supposed to be a great day. It was just meant for us to kind of reconnect and have some time together. We go into the movie and it's empty, no one's there. At some point, a man comes in and sits directly behind us out of a whole empty movie theater. We're just sitting there watching the previews, and we hear a voice telling Chad to turn his phone off. But not in a nice, polite way. It was like a demand. Chad responded that he was just checking on his daughter, seeing if there was maybe a missed call or something from the daycare. Then you hear it again from the guy behind us. Turn the phone off. From there, he gets up and he storms off.
The man was 71-year-old Curtis Reeves, a retired SWAT commander and police captain who'd brought a gun with him that day.
We just went back to watching the previews, thinking everything was over, like, okay, manager's gonna come up, say, keep your phone away, that would be it. But that's not what happened, not at all.
When the guy sat down, he kept saying stuff to my husband about, oh, so now you put the phone away. And my husband, turned around and stood up and just said, hey, what is your problem? The movie hasn't even started, and he was just nasty.
Surveillance footage shows Chad throwing popcorn at Reeves, who immediately fired a pistol into Chad's chest.
Just saw like a spark and saw him go down. And from there, I didn't even realize that my finger was shot as well. I was just so worried about him.
911, what is the address of emergency? Sir, there's been a gunshot at the Comp Theater. Movie theater. I'm a nurse, sir, so at this point, I'm just trying to make sure this guy stays with us.
Chad died less than an hour later.
Just unbelievable, because the situation had never got more than just kind of a, whatever, dude, what's your problem? And then he's dead. And it just didn't make any sense how it escalated that quickly.
Curtis Reeves claims self-defense under Florida's Stand Your Ground law, which permits people to use deadly force anywhere if they claim they were in fear for their life.
It's not what I think, not what you think. It's what the person who fires the gun thinks and how they decide to react.
He was acquitted in 2022.
Curtis Reeves, an absolute explosion of reaction.
This is the most bizarre case. How they could have said that was self-defense.
It is pure vigilantism. He threw popcorn at me. I was in fear. I shot him dead. We're done. I mean, that's what the law is. The jury applied the facts to the law, and he walked free.
We're sending the message that you can just do this. This is okay.
Trayvon Martin was a teenager walking home, confronted.
Since the killing of Trayvon Martin first brought Stand Your Ground into the spotlight over a decade ago, the laws have proliferated. 38 states now have some version of Stand Your Ground, also known as shoot first laws by critics. Data shows some of these states have seen a rise in gun killings, and more shooters like George Zimmerman are going free.
You're saying that these laws actually encourage more violence? Is that what you're seeing when you try some of these cases?
100%, because everybody has a gun and because people have an absolute right to defend themselves. The tension is heightened in every single confrontation, and people know that the law will likely protect you.
How you doing, Curtis? We'll step over here to my car. You all right? Sit here in front seat. So what made you shoot him?
Well, I guess it scared the hell out of me. I don't think I've ever had anybody get in my face like that. If I was 20 years younger or something like that, I might have just wrestled it out with him, but
okay.
All that agility. gone.
Reeves was arrested and charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and second-degree murder. Throughout his 8-year legal battle, he maintained that he shot and killed Chad in self-defense.
During the trial, he sat on the stand and claimed that this was the most dangerous, terrifying, life-threatening situation he had ever experienced in his whole life.
I'm sitting down in a completely defenseless position. I'm looking up at this guy, and he looked like a monster standing there.
And that's just hard to believe, that someone throwing a little bit of popcorn on you was the most terrifying experience in all of your SWAT days and all of your police career. The man that took a life has turned into the victim, and my husband is now the aggressor. And that's not fair, because that's not the truth. That's not how it was. Chad was the love of my life. He was my rock. He was my everything. He was outgoing, fun, caring, kind, the life of the party, and a great father.
Kisses? Thank you.
He was in his 40s when Lexi was born, and it just changed his world. It was all he talked about every day at work, checking in on her, and the minute he got home, just all about her.
Good girl. Jump, jump. Jump, jump.
Lexi was just under 2 years old when Chad was killed.
Very pretty. I was in the hospital room.
Yep.
You can see.
She's 11 now.
Do you know where this was?
Yeah, the movie theater.
That was the cross that they put outside the movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
And we would go and bring flowers. It's hard to believe that a day that we were both looking forward to and enjoying just went from 0 to 60 in a blink of an eye. This one's my favorite, one of my favorites.
I remember that.
Daddy was always fun, right? Look at the smile on his face. You made his heart so happy. You were his little sunshine. He had you laughing at something. Everything just changed. I don't know what he did. Never coming back, never getting to see his daughter grow up.
Curtis Reeves might have had a harder time proving he killed Chad Olson in self-defense before 2005. That's the year Florida passed its Stand Your Ground law, one of the first in the country. It upended a centuries-old legal tradition known as the Castle Doctrine.
Castle Doctrine is the common law concept of your home is your castle, and you have a right to protect your castle.
Stand Your Ground then takes it one step further to say that you have the right to defend yourself any place where you're legally entitled to be.
This was a vast expansion of self-defense law. And it didn't stop there. Florida lawmakers also repealed what's known as the duty to retreat.
Duty to retreat is de-escalation. If you can get yourself to safety, you don't have a right to exercise self-defense. Someone's irritating you in a theater? Well, you should go take another seat. You don't take a handgun and shoot them dead.
And what's the impact of that when you remove that requirement from the law?
You've told folks, go ahead and exercise your self-defense rights, kill somebody, and the system won't be able to touch you. That's what these laws do.
One study found that in nearly 80% of Stand Your Ground cases in Florida, the assailant could have retreated to avoid the confrontation.
He instigated it over and over and over again. With all of his training, you would think that that would be the first thing that you do. Try to find ways to de-escalate the situation. Hey, let's move. Hey, let's not keep saying stuff when the problem's resolved. I mean, he didn't do any of those things.
And he didn't have to. Under Stand Your Ground, Reeves' claim that he'd feared for his life was enough to justify his use of deadly force. The burden was on prosecutors to show that he hadn't been afraid. How do you crawl into the mind of the defendant to prove that?
It's difficult because fear is subjective and you can't measure fear.
This situation, many times, it's an instantaneous act. If there's no statements, if there's no writings, if there's no intent expressed going into the event, we don't have anything to get into the mind of the person who just took that life. There's basically no evidence.
As a result, more shooters are receiving immunity for causing death or serious injury. One study found that in the decade after Stand Your Ground was enacted, Florida experienced a 75% uptick in legally justifiable homicides. Curtis Reeves' killing of Chad Olson was among them.
Count 1, murder in the second degree. The defendant is not guilty. Count 2, aggravated battery. The defendant is not guilty. So say we all.
Maybe I'm naive. You just think facts will come out, the truth will be told, and justice will be served. We had all the witnesses in our favor. We had the video in our favor, yet that wasn't enough in the end.
All right, Mr. Reeves, you are free to go. Congratulations, everyone.
Prosecutors we spoke to are concerned about the chilling effect that the Reeves verdict may have, that it may not be viable to bring charges in similar Stand Your Ground cases, and that an increasing number of victims' families will never see justice.
Somebody has killed their loved one and you're having to make a phone call saying, I know exactly who did it, but I don't know if what they did to your family member is actually a crime. You can't put a price on what that does to the victim's family, telling them that someone killing their loved one may not be a crime.
It's an experience shared by the family of William Hawkins, a 35-year-old man who was killed at this gas station in San Antonio, Texas.
Say hi to Uncle Will.
One morning in October 2021, William, who was houseless, approached a man exiting the store. Within a matter of seconds, the man shot him. William died soon after. His brother Adam and mother Margaret believe he was asking the man for money.
So right here, right? Man. Oh, a lot to take in still. Still a little hard.
William's family says he had been struggling with homelessness for a decade, since his stepfather died. The financial and emotional hardship worsened William's mental health issues.
It was really hard seeing him getting into these drug addictions and just watching him crumble like before my eyes. And I couldn't do anything to help him. But even though he was going through all that, he still tried to keep me, like, go to school. I don't want you here. He was always trying to give me money. It was always like he was there to save the day. So.
He was just a kind-natured person. Always had something uplifting to say to someone if they were down or, you know.
Why do you think that this happened to William?
Because he was somebody that they felt like wasn't important and that no one was gonna care if anything happened to him.
He was a black houseless man. That's why I think it happened.
I would argue, this was his home. Someone came into his neighborhood and shot him for no reason.
Dawn White Fostick runs the Houseless Services Organization, where William often got meals and showered.
The gas station is right there, and this is our parking lot, and my office faces the gas station.
Is that a camera right there?
The camera's right there. We immediately knew to start looking on the camera.
The shooting was captured on at least 2 security cameras. When Dawn and her staff reviewed their footage, They were surprised by just how short the encounter was.
We were looking for visible signs of a conflict, whether they were wrestling or whether he ran. And we watched the video over and over, and he literally just walked by the guy. One time he approached him and the guy shot him.
The most upsetting thing about that video is that he just went right back in his car and drove off. Like, no remorse for anything. It just like hurts me because, like, you know, there's other people at that gas station and they just watched him die.
Sources told us that William lay there alone until paramedics arrived several minutes later. Police confirmed that he was unarmed.
A person who doesn't have a weapon or is houseless asking you a question, why would you just pull out a gun? Even if you were scared, you could have been like, hey man, I don't have any change, or sorry, you know, like, but he decided to shoot him.
That's when the gears of Stand Your Ground started to turn.
After he had shot and killed William, he went around the corner and actually called the police department, turned himself in. He was questioned, and then after stating his case that this was in self-defense, he was let go. And that's all that we were told.
Once somebody shoots somebody else dead, most people expect the police to arrive, put handcuffs on that person, and take them to jail.
And in Stand Your Ground,
you can shoot somebody and get in your truck and drive away.
Is that unusual?
That is very unusual because we're talking about the crime of murder. But it's a very clear in the statute, they don't want anybody arrested. That's why it's a get out of jail free card at the time you pull the trigger.
Why do you think the shooter wasn't arrested?
Because of the law. I feel like he's hiding behind the Stand Your Ground law. We're only hearing his story. We're not hearing William's because, you know, he's dead.
When we dug deeper into William's case, we couldn't find much. Only that a grand jury had declined to indict the shooter. For nearly 2 years after William's killing, this police report was the only publicly available document about the case. It says that William seemed to walk very aggressively towards the suspect, which appeared to startle him. Most identifying information, including the shooter's name, was redacted. We wrote the San Antonio Police Department to find out why. They told us there was no probable cause to arrest him, and that because he was never charged with a crime, they couldn't release his name.
None of it made sense. It didn't. We felt like there were so many details that were left unsaid. None of it made sense.
Instead of getting answers, William's family says they've been put on the defensive because of his history of mental health issues.
What Adam and I have had to do so many times is to prove the value of William's life. And that is how hurtful, how harmful, and how violent these laws have become.
Since when did being in someone's face or bothering them become something that required the death penalty? And because it happened to someone that is very vulnerable and has no voice, it was easy to just push it aside.
It begs the question, does Stand Your Ground benefit some communities while harming others? We went to ask Jeff Wentworth, a former state senator who wrote an early version of Texas's Stand Your Ground law in 2007.
Who does this law benefit and who does it hurt?
I don't know that it hurts anybody. It was designed to protect law-abiding citizens by eliminating the duty to retreat and allowing them to defend themselves and their families. The law in existence at the time required those of us that are like watching the 10 o'clock news in the family room of our home to retreat. And I thought that's just not right. It's not Texan, and it needs to be changed.
Does it give people who have guns more of an excuse to be trigger happy
instead of trying to slow down and think first?
I would hope not, but I can't be responsible for the reaction of 30 million Texans.
We don't know what factors could have influenced why William's shooter felt threatened by him. What we do know is that stand your ground laws are being unevenly applied when it comes to race. Data shows that when a white person kills a black person, it's 5 times more likely to be considered justified than the other way around.
I will say stand your ground is probably the most serious of where we're seeing the inequities in the system, because black people are usually seen as violent, are usually seen as dangerous, and white people are usually seen as law-abiding citizens who are doing things to protect their family, to protect themselves, and generally just trying to follow the laws and do the right thing.
And it has always been a fear of mine that something would happen to one of my sons because they were African American. And my fear just happened to come true. So if he have no proof of it, then it's still...
With criminal charges unlikely, the family is pursuing legal action on their own.
We knew like the moment that the claim of self-defense was made, things changed, right? And that we knew that this is going to be 10 times harder for us to be able to bring any kind of justice for William now that self-defense is made.
Well, we can still sue the person that killed William. In a civil case, Hawkins family versus John Doe, that tells the court that either I'm not disclosing the name of the defendant or we don't know the name of the defendant.
I guess we're just trying to understand, how is this man so protected?
Yeah, that's the question. That's the question. And the only thing I can come up with is...
In August 2023, nearly 2 years after William was killed, a source shared the shooter's identity with fault lines. He's a 45-year-old white man who was previously arrested for assault in a separate case. We reached out to him to ask why he felt threatened enough by William to shoot and kill him. In a message, he told us to read the police report and to not contact him again.
This shooter is living his life and has the choice to live his life every single day. It's a living hell.
It's a sentiment Nicole Olson shares about the man who killed her husband.
Not too long ago, I ran into him at a restaurant, and my heart just stopped. Like, just that thought of this guy, he's such a threat to anybody and everybody around him. If you just do one thing wrong, if you just say one thing wrong, like, this is what it could lead to.
We reached out to Curtis Reeves for an interview, but he declined.
The 16-year-old shot in the head and arm when his family says he went to the wrong address to pick up his younger brothers.
Headlines like these have become all too familiar.
Then opened fire. The homeowner reportedly said he was scared to death.
3 friends in a car drove up the wrong driveway.
The subject came out on his porch and fired 2 shots at an innocent girl who was taken way too young.
And data shows stand your ground laws have played a role, leading to around 700 homicides a year.
People feel as though they can resort to lethal force to resolve this conflict or tension because they have no duty to walk away. Why does that person deserve more protection than the person who lost their life? I think that's the part that a lot of people struggle with.
As a parent, you teach your children at a very young age to not start fights, to walk away. And yet these gun laws go against that. Shoot first, ask questions later. Every day, it's an ongoing fear of what society we live in these days. If I hear a confrontation, it's that, oh my gosh, this could escalate just like, it did for us.